After class ended, I walked into the hallway, eager to leave campus because I had something important to do today. But my steps halted when someone blocked my way. It was a familiar woman, one of my classmates. I'd noticed her earlier when the others ignored me. If I remembered right, the one in the center was Samantha. Ashley was on her left, and I'd forgotten the name of the woman on her right. Suddenly, Ashley sneered at me, looking me up and down with clear disgust. Well, no matter how hard you try, you'll never look presentable. She spat. Literally. Thanks to the reflexes I'd honed growing up in an abusive home, I dodged her spit with ease. I looked at her calmly, not bothering to waste a word. Talking to her was pointless, like talking to air. I tried to walk past, but these people thrived on attention. The more I ignored them, the more they pushed. Where do you think you are going? I am not finished talking to you, Ashley snapped, eyes icy with arrogance. I rolled my eyes and snorted. Whatever. Talk all you want. It has nothing to do with me. After that, I moved to leave, my retort clearly irritating them, making Samantha's glare sharpen. She lashed out, kicking my knee and forcing me to kneel. Before I even processed it, her hand tangled in my hair, jerking my head back. Heh, new girl thinks she owns the place, huh? Arrogant, pathetic, ugly thing, she snarled, then slapped me across the face. I glared up, teeth clenched. I was used to pain used to abuse, but I was no robot. I wasn't going to let anyone treat me like a punching bag. Summoning my strength, I punched her in the knee, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to make her scream and let go. They mistook me for a pushover, just because I looked like one. They'd soon learn better. I kept my head down, refusing to acknowledge them. Maybe then they'd lose interest. Cow, she screamed, kicking at me again. This time I dodged easily. I fixed my gaze on her, wearing a cold smirk, then slapped her hard from one cheek to the other. That's payback, swollen cheeks suit you. It brings out your inner clown. Why? You. Samantha sputtered, clutching her face in rage and humiliation. I smiled blandly and walked away, ignoring the hostile glares burning into my back. I almost made it just about to escape, when suddenly I was airborne, knocked several feet back like I'd grown wings. Pain shot through me as my back slammed into the wall. A sharp ache radiated from my stomach. Only then did I realize I'd been kicked. I glanced up and saw a man. Not just any man, the infamous alpha triplets of the class, notorious troublemakers. All eyes followed them, partly for the chaos they caused, and partly for their striking looks. Long black hair, night dark eyes, pale skin that was anything but delicate. It made them impossibly compelling. They were the Ferrer triplets. Lawrence Ferrer, Ishid Ferrer, and Drake Ferrer from the renowned Crescent Moon Pack. I didn't know which of the three had kicked me just now. Whoever it was, he was powerful. He must have figured from the way I was built that I could take it. I'm tall and muscled enough not to pass for fragile, standing at 167 centimeters. I got my height from my mother. She's 10 centimeters taller, and even stronger, which honestly scares me more than anyone else. An arrogant woman like you doesn't belong here. Leave, a cool, sneering voice commanded. As his brothers snickered behind him, I lifted my chin, holding his gaze. Arrogant? Are you blind? Didn't you see? Before I could finish, he punched me in the face, pain erupting along my cheekbone. Damn it. All I wanted was to study in peace. I glared at him, my patience already worn thin. I hate the way you look at me. What's with your attitude, ugly, graceless fool? He snapped. Ha, Drake. Come on, you shouldn't go so hard. Look, she's about to cry. One of his brothers mockingly laughed. The other just watched impassively. I snorted, shoving him away. He let me go, and I turned my back on them. That should have been the end, but then came another brutal kick to my knees. I buckled and crashed to the ground. Fury surged through me, my vision turning red with hatred. This is what happens when you act tough. He spat before walking off, leaving me floored. Fine, fairer triplets. I won't forget your names. One day, I'll make sure you pay for this. Hey, dull. One day passed, and now I had free time tonight. There was an event at the dark alley, a street fighting match, mostly for boxers. I wasn't a professional, but boxing was my release and my strength. I loved the thrill of victory, an edge of triumph that tasted all the sweeter with every bruise. When I arrived at the venue, a crowd already pressed in, competitors and spectators alike. Matches were well underway, the cheers deafening. To fight, you had to register first. The rules of this underground bout were strict. No killing allowed. You could hurt your opponent, but not end their life. Only men were officially allowed to fight. Except that rule bent for non-humans. No weapons either. Disguised. I wore a short-haired wig and men's clothes. With my height and build, I passed for a lean young man. A mask hid most of my face, just my brows and eyes showing. While I waited for my turn, a figure sat down beside me. Newcomer? She sounded gentle, but there was a hint of steel in her tone. I turned, nodding. Yeah. I kept my voice low, deliberately deepening it. Her smile fell, her eyes turning serious. Be careful out there. Your opponent can't kill you, but there's a lot they can do to make you suffer. I nodded thanks. Noted, I'll handle myself. Name's Rain. Beta. I was about to introduce myself when a voice announced my alias. Let's welcome Moriarty versus Kyle. Applause thundered. On the sidelines, people were already gambling over which of us would win. I strode into the ring, facing Kyle. He was about my height, but built like a bulldozer. Moriarty, huh? Kyle grinned, eyeing me with confidence. I stayed silent, meeting his gaze. Start! The announcer yelled. He charged, fist raised. I dodged, slipping aside, then landed an uppercut to his jaw. He reeled. My knuckles stung, but I pressed the advantage, bracing my forearms defensively as he retaliated. He ducked to one side, shoving my elbow as I staggered. I quickly regained my balance. He squared off, jabbed out again, and I slipped left, grappling his wrist, twisting until he howled in pain. With a sudden move, I seized him by the hair, yanking his head forward to smash his nose. With a howl, Kyle stumbled away, but I drove an elbow into the soft spot near his temple. He crumpled to the mat out cold. I exhaled, letting Kyle drop, then glanced at the stunned crowd. And the winner is Moriarty, the host shouted. I left the ring and claimed my prize at the counter. Collecting it, I slipped away from the crowd, heading to a quiet park bench. There, hidden in the shadows, I pulled off my wig and mask, stashing them back in my bag. A sharp pang shot through my abdomen. The bruise Drake gave me yesterday had taken another beating in the ring. I hadn't noticed until now. Just as I winced, a gentle, almost saintly voice entered my ear. You look hurt. Are you all right? His kindness was disarming. But the voice was unsettlingly familiar. I looked up, and my eyes widened. Drake! That arrogant bastard stood before me now, all warmth and concern, as if he wasn't the one who'd assaulted me. He looked surprised, then studied me. You're that woman? Drake roughed up. The muscle along my jaw twitched as all the rage came rushing back. So, which one of the alphas are you? I glared at him, barely suppressing my fury. He lifted his hands. Lawrence, I was the one who didn't get involved when Drake and Ishid picked fights. He introduced himself, making me roll my eyes. Oh, you're the bystander, standing around enjoying the spectacle. What are you doing out here? I snapped, still glaring. He was about to answer when two more familiar voices cut in. Lawrence. There you are. We've been looking all over, one drawled, dressed like a wannabe gangster. That would be Drake, no doubt. Ishid, the other brother, eyed me shrewdly. Whoa, you look familiar, Lawrence sighed. She's the one you two bullied. My anger flared. But before I could retort, Lawrence suddenly leaned close, so close. His striking face caught me off guard, and for a second I froze at his mesmerizing gaze. This arrogant scoundrel. I was about to push him away when his voice slid out quietly. Mate. Mate? Me? Our mate, he repeated softly, making me tense in shock. Our? What do you mean, ours? I glared at him but suddenly felt a hot jolt spark across my chest, like I'd been shocked. I looked up to find Lawrence's steady gaze on me. His brothers, too, watched me intently, as if searching for something beneath my skin. Damn it. What the hell have these bastards just done to me? The city lights outside my window cast long shadows across the bed. I lay on my back, eyes fixed on the ceiling, listening to the distant hum of traffic below. Each exhale seemed to fill the silence, stretching the night even longer. A soft knock echoed from the hallway. Breaking through my thoughts, "Come in," I called quietly. The door opened just enough for her to slip inside, her silhouette framed by the golden light behind her. She closed the door gently and hesitated for a moment, her hand resting on the knob. "I couldn't sleep," she whispered. I pushed myself up on one elbow, searching her face. "Want to talk about it?" She shook her head, eyes focused on the floor. "Not really. Would it be okay if I just stayed here?" Her voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "Just tonight." I slid over, lifting the edge of the blanket in silent invitation. She crossed the room quickly, her bare feet making no sound on the hardwood. As she slipped beneath the covers, she kept to her own side, shoulders tense. There was a trace of tears in her eyes that glistened in the moonlight. We lay there silent at first. The warmth of her presence filled the once empty space between us, easing the tight coil in my chest. I wanted to reach for her hand but wasn't sure if it was what she needed. "Thank you," she murmured, voice wavering. "You're safe here," I replied softly. After a few moments, she rolled onto her side, closer than before, but not quite touching me. Her breathing settled, slow and steady. I matched her rhythm unconsciously, letting the weight of the world fade for just a while. "Will you stay?" she asked quietly, almost as if speaking in her sleep. "I'm not going anywhere," I promised. Sleep stole up on us gradually, wrapping the room in a gentle hush. The nightmares that threatened to invade the darkness outside found no opening here. Not tonight. With her by my side, tangled in blankets and hope, I closed my eyes and finally let myself believe in the comfort of morning. Chapter 12. Bad Wolf. My lips curled in disdain as I looked at them, as if they were utter fools. "What exactly are you talking about? Is this some kind of prank? You don't look like clowns, so there is no reason for me to laugh," I said, without a hint of fear as I stood. I turned to walk away, but their snickers stopped me. "Why are you acting like that after hearing we're your mates? Do you really think someone like us would want you?" The way he spoke made it obvious. It was Drake, always the one with something wrong upstairs. Of course it was. I whirled around to face them. Even Lawrence gazed at me with obvious pity in his eyes. Their looks only inflamed my anger more. I tried to ignore the tightness in my chest as I glared back at them. Aren't you three a little full of yourselves? What makes you think I'd ever want you as my mates? I shot back, my eyes narrowing. Exactly. Who in their right mind would want someone determined to see them crushed? Who would wish to be shackled to the likes of these triplets? Still, disappointment gnawed at me against my will. Ishid snickered, eyeing me like I was a bug. Don't get ahead of yourself just because fate chose us as mates. We don't want you. Drake fixed his cold gaze on me to add, we, the Farrer brothers, reject you as our Luna. You are not worthy of leading our pack. The Crescent Moon pack deserves better. It would be humiliating to have someone like you as Luna. His words cut through me, even though I'd never wanted any connection with them. I wasn't sure why their rejection sent a sickening wave over my heart, tightening until I could barely breathe. All three of them stared at me, empty-eyed as if seeing a stranger, not a mate. What a joke. I shouldn't feel this upset. It is not as if I'd asked for any of this, and I refuse to let them see how much their dismissal hurt. Bullies like them didn't deserve my vulnerability. They're the same ones who started every fight, who embarrassed me day after day on campus. There is no way I'd ever run toward them out of misguided hope. I am not developing Stockholm Syndrome. Thank you. So I tipped my chin up, straightened my spine, and offered my sweetest and most indifferent smile. My voice was steady, almost cheerful, as if their words barely mattered. Thank you really for the rejection. This works out perfectly for me, and honestly benefits us all. I don't believe in mates anyway, and judging by how you three treat me, public humiliation and actual harm included, I'm relieved not to be roped in as your Luna. Imagine what could have happened to me if I were. I shrugged lightly. I hope our paths never cross again, and if they do, just pretend you don't know me. For the record, I reject all three of you as my alphas too. With that, I turned and left them gaping. Why should I grieve something like this? They're bullies capable of hurting others, easily able to hurt me, just like my mother did. My werewolf mother. And these three? They're alphas, werewolves. Who knows what they're capable of, or what limits they might cross? With attitudes like that, they'd hurt me in a heartbeat if I ever got in their way or defied them. I finally had my freedom back. There's no chance I'd let myself become someone else's puppet again. Never would I accept a mate bond with people like them, though the heavy ache pulsed in my chest. I didn't look back. The last word was theirs, to reject me as Luna, but why did it all taste so bitter? Abruptly, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Seeing an unknown number flash on the screen immediately put me on edge. Something about this didn't feel right. Every instinct warned me not to ignore it, so I pressed the green button. Hello, Universe speaking. Who is this? I tried to keep my voice calm, though my heart was thumping wildly. Even without an answer, dread hung in the air. A teasing voice replied, So this is Miss Unifer. Pretty name. Laughter erupted in the background on the other end. Men amused at my expense. What do you want? I pressed, holding desperately to my politeness, though my nerves frayed. Why do I have such a bad feeling? The laughter died abruptly. It is simple. Come to the abandoned building near the alley alone. Tell anyone about this, and you'll suffer the consequences. Consequences? What is he threatening? What are you talking about? What if I refuse? It is not like I owe you anything, I demanded. Rallying what courage I could even as dread pounded in my chest. Suddenly the caller's voice turned icy. So you refuse. You might regret that. And, abruptly, the line cut off. What was that? Who are these people, and what are they planning? My nerves twisted tighter until the phone vibrated again. I answered without checking the number, too tense to think straight. What do you want? My words tumbled out frantic. What am I supposed to do? Who the hell? A distraught voice cut me off. Are you Asher Sarmiento's guardian? Asher is missing from school. I've searched everywhere and can't find him. The words wrapped choking cold around my heart. I stood frozen as if drenched by a bucket of ice water. My world lurched sideways, and my chest clamped tight with panic. Fighting for control, I forced myself to speak, though my voice was trembling. W. When did you last see him? The urge to break down fought with my need to keep it together. Tears pooled in my eyes. It has been 10 minutes. No one has seen him. He has been isolating more and more. He hardly talks to anyone, but it seems like there's always a wall up between him and everyone else. The teacher said through her own tears, I understand. I'll let you know as soon as I find him, I managed, ending the call. At once, I dialed the earlier unknown caller. Finally, I was waiting for you to call. The same rough, gleeful voice greeted me. Where is my brother? Where is Asher? My tone was deadly cold. If you want to see him, come to the place I mentioned. And remember, no police and no one else. Or I swear, I'll cut your brother's throat, he threatened with venom. Nails biting into my palms, I ground out, I'll come as long as you promise he is unharmed. But suddenly, I heard a trembling, familiar voice in the background. Sister, don't come. I am fine, please. Red-hot anger shot through me as the caller snickered. Touch my brother and you'll regret it, I shouted back. Then be quick about it, or find your brother's corpse, he retorted, that miserable laugh echoing before the line went dead. Rage blazed inside me. I punched a wall, letting out a guttural shout. If they laid a single finger on him, they'd regret it for the rest of their lives. I bolted out the door, not even pausing to apologize when I barreled into a stranger's arm. Someone grabbed me, restraining my rush. Let go of me unless you want your hand broken off, I snapped, yanking free and tearing off down the street, heading for the abandoned building those thugs had mentioned. Arriving out front, I found faces I recognized instantly, gangsters who once taunted a black wolf. Nice to see you again. One of them grinned wickedly. I ignored his leer. Where is my brother? I barely had time to brace before blinding pain shot through my stomach. Someone had kicked me hard, sending me sprawling to the ground. Getting bold, are you? You are just a woman. How dare you look at us like that? You ought to be grateful to serve us. Human, one of them sneered, driving another brutal kick into my abdomen. Through the pain, I clenched my teeth and glared. Another gang member finally stopped the kicking. Enough. Our boss wants her still breathing. Don't kill or bruise her beyond recognition. Not until he's had his fun anyway. Disgust rippled through me. But I said nothing, letting them haul me to my feet and drag me into the crumbling building inside. I barely kept standing when I saw Asher, small and unconscious, tied to a chair, a wound darkening his pale cheek. What have you done to him? My fury sharper than pain, I twisted free from the thug hauling me by my hair and charged toward my brother. Before I could reach him, one of the others slammed me to the floor. Blood filled my mouth, dripping from my lips. I hardly noticed. Blazing with anger and helplessness, I forced myself to meet the boss's eyes. My own were raw with tears I could no longer hide. W want. I rasped my glare a warning, refusing to break in front of him. His lips quirked in vicious satisfaction. He knelt in front of me, tilting my chin up. I slapped at his hand and was rewarded with a sudden strike across the face, the sting lighting up my nerves. I hissed, swallowing pain and fear. Then he leaned close and murmured, softly but cold as winter, "Sleep with me, Unifer's point of view." What? Suddenly, it felt like I'd gone deaf. What the hell was he talking about? When he saw the confusion on my face, he repeated his words, hunger burning in his eyes as if I was already laid bare before him. The way he looked at me made my skin crawl. I felt filthy beneath his gaze. I said, "I want you to sleep with me. It's simple. You want your brother. I'll give him back to you. In return, you do as I say. Be my plaything." His smirk was brazen, his eyes never leaving me. Disgust twisted in my stomach. I wanted to vomit. Did he really think he owned my brother? Bargaining him for my body? Couldn't he see himself, a ghastly sight reflected back in a mirror? Did he really think anyone wanted to be with someone like him? He was appalling. A jagged scar, likely from a burn, marred his forehead. Tattoos covered his body, a heavy beer belly hung over his jeans, and chunky silver chains clung to his neck. When I'd first seen him, murderer was my first thought. Turns out, I wasn't mistaken. This man could kill if he wanted. That didn't matter. I'd rather die than let someone like him touch me. It would be better if he simply ended me and let my brother escape. I clenched my teeth, lips trembling as I struggled to decide what to do. But before I could speak, a familiar voice rang out to stop me. "Sister, no, don't do it. You're too good for this act." He didn't even finish. The kidnapper struck Asher hard across the face, swelling his lips and cheek. My eyes narrowed as I watched. It felt like a dam burst within me. Rage boiling over. My mind blank, every pulse in my body screaming to destroy the man who dared to hurt my brother. The pain racking my body faded as fury fueled me. I forced myself up, hands curling into fists. Without thinking, I drove my fist into his face, then slammed my foot into his stomach. A deep growl came out of me. Too consumed by anger to notice my sight edging red, I barely registered the kidnapper's body slamming against the wall. My only concern now was Asher. I tore at the rope, binding his hands, freeing him, gathering him close as hot tears tumbled down my face. He grinned up at me, tapping my cheek with his little hands. "You're strong, you really saved me." He laughed, pride sparkling in his eyes. My heart tightened, tears threatening again, and I hugged him fiercely. The moment was short. Suddenly I sensed danger behind me. I whirled, hiding my brother behind me as I faced the 5 men now shifting into bestial forms. Wolves, their claws looked sharp enough to tear me apart. They circled me, eyes wild, ready to strike. "I offered you a fair deal." The lead wolf's rough voice grated against my ears as he raised his claws. "Now, I won't bother being civil." Instinct kicked in. I dodged his swipe, swung a punch at his snout, but someone else seized my hair from the right. Pain jerked my head back. I couldn't block the wolf's next blow. His claws raked my stomach, opening a bleeding wound. Warm blood dripped down my skin. I bit my lip to keep from crying out as pain flared, threatening to drag me under. Gritting my teeth, I curled my fist, determined not to lose consciousness. "Go to hell," I growled, hammering blows at them and kicking hard. I heard grunts, saw their heads snap back as my foot landed. Blood streamed over the now broken noses of the wolves writhing at my feet. Maybe I looked defenseless compared to them as a human, but my fists and legs were stronger than they realized. Years of daily training made sure of it. I'd sworn to protect myself, sworn to always protect my brother. Before they could recover, I cracked another blow into their faces, reassured by the crunch of breaking bone. A well-placed kick sent them crashing to the ground, gasping and moaning from the agony. My bruised knuckles ached, throbbing from the brutal assault, chest heaving. I wondered if the sweat dripping down my neck was mine, or if it was blood from my stomach wound. My ruined shirt was soaked in it now, but I'd let my guard slip. While the boss was sprawled on the floor, out cold, I hadn't noticed someone behind me waiting until the last instant. Too late. I spun and saw claws arcing toward my face too close to dodge. If I didn't move, his claws would ruin my face. Maybe even blind me. Just as I braced for the worst, he stumbled. His own swipe tore into his face as he tumbled down, screaming in pain as blood poured from the wound. I winced at the sight, turning to the left where Asher stood. Grinning, he must have kicked out the opponent's legs, making him miss. Asher met my gaze, smiling in triumph, then leaped straight back into my arms. "Sister!" he cried, still grinning ear to ear, but the relief was short-lived. He pulled back suddenly, eyes falling to his hands, which trembled. His gaze flicked up to me, red and brimming with guilt. "You're hurt," he whispered, voice wobbling, desperate not to cry. I managed a reassuring smile, patting his head gently. "Thank you for saving me. If you hadn't, I would be much worse off." I nodded to the wolves squirming on the ground. They might have fainted from their wounds. Or perhaps it was the blood loss. I didn't care. The only one that mattered right now was my brother. We need a doctor. Why, you're bleeding." He stammered, horror in his eyes, as he saw my shirt torn and stained crimson. He seemed oblivious to the blood staining his own hands, or the bruises swelling his cheeks where he'd taken that blow earlier. All he cared about was me, seeing him fight off fear. Fighting to be strong for me when he was just a child broke my heart. I ruffled his hair with a soft smile. "Come on, let's get out of here," dizzily. Every nerve in my body screamed in protest. I kept silent, knowing I wouldn't be able to convince him to return to class, and I didn't want my injuries worrying him more. He immediately gripped my hand, using his small body to guide me carefully toward the exit. "Where's your phone?" he asked with watery eyes and a red nose. I pulled my cracked phone from a pocket, letting out a weak sigh, and passed it to him while leaning on his shoulder. My legs wouldn't stop shaking. He quickly dialed the hospital, reporting my injuries, then contacted the police with the address of our kidnappers. We sat together on a bench outside the abandoned building, awaiting the ambulance. He gnawed his nails nervously, shaking from head to toe. If he could, he'd have carried me to the hospital himself. That's when I noticed 3 familiar figures approaching us, moving purposefully in our direction. If anything could make this day worse, it was their arrival. Of course, it was the fairer alphas, the very triplets who'd rejected me. They stared straight at me. I turned away, pretending not to recognize them. After all, wasn't this what they'd insisted on from the start? Not to drag them into my mess, not to humiliate them by acknowledging our bond. As they drew nearer, Asher leapt to his feet, shielding me, bristling with rage. He glared defiantly at the 3, baring his not-yet-grown fangs and claws. "Stay away from us," he warned coldly. The triplets halted, cold eyes on him. But after a long moment they kept coming. Their gazes roamed over me, taking in my state. Drake's jaw tensed, his eyes growing darker with fury. "Who dared do this to you?" Drake demanded, voice so cold it made me shiver, tilting my chin proudly. I tightened my grip on Asher. "Who are you supposed to be? Do I know you? Universe Sarmiento." "Answer my question," Drake snapped, his alpha voice cutting through me, making me freeze up. What in the world was wrong with him? With them. Their eyes were black with rage, their glares sharp enough to kill. What right did they have to raise their voices at me? Bloody, battered, I shot him a glare. You have no right to speak to me like that. Didn't we agree to act like strangers? I owe you nothing, not explanations, not the truth, nothing at all. Isn't this what you wanted? I waited outside Marty's door, anxious but determined. The hallway smelled faintly of old coffee and dust, just what you'd expect in a place like this. I tapped my fingers against the folder under my arm, trying to keep my hands from shaking. Inside, Marty's voice growled into the phone. I couldn't make out every word, just the harsh edge to whatever conversation he was having. Finally, the receiver slammed down, and I heard his chair creak. Then, "Come in." I pushed open the chipped door. Marty looked up from behind a desk piled with paperwork, his expression unreadable. His suit jacket hung on the chair behind him, and his sleeves were rolled to his elbows. "Well, make it quick," he said, waving me forward. Taking a breath, I stepped forward and held out the folder. "I finished the report you assigned me," I said, steadying my voice as best as I could. "And, well, I've been at this job for 3 weeks. I'd like to talk about my payment." The silence stretched. Marty's eyes narrowed, studying my face. "You want payment?" His lips curled in something like amusement. "But it wasn't friendly, that's rich. Last I checked, you're the newbie here. I did the work you wanted. I came in early, I stayed late. Isn't that what you promised when you hired me?" My palms itched, but I didn't look away. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. The chair squealed again under his weight. "People like you think you deserve everything handed over immediately." His tone dripped with condescension. "Life doesn't work that way." I set my jaw. "I just want what's fair, even a partial payment for the first project." He looked at me for a long moment, sizing me up. Finally, he straightened the stack of papers before him, as if that could buy him more time. "Look, kid," he said, voice dropping lower. "This city is full of folks just waiting for a break. You ask too much, you get replaced before your coffee gets cold. That clear enough for you?" I felt my chest tightening, but I stood my ground. "I've proved myself here. If you don't intend to pay, tell me now." A pause. He flicked through the report in the folder, skimming the first page without reading. "You've got guts. Not sure if that's smart or suicidal. I'll get you something end of the week. Don't expect me to forget this little confrontation, though." Relief, mixed with apprehension, washed over me. "Thank you," I said quietly. He grunted. "Yeah, don't get too hopeful." He tossed the folder to one corner of his desk and gestured at the door. "Now get out of my office." I nodded and slipped outside, closing the door gently behind me. My breath came easier in the hallway. I wasn't sure if I'd won or just delayed another fight, but at least I hadn't backed down. "Not this time," I shouted hoarsely at Drake, who had just raised his voice at me. Did he really believe he could control me, that he owned me just because I was their mate? They'd already discussed it and coldly rejected me as soon as they found out who I was. So why this behavior now? Why act as if they know me, care for me, after everything they've done? I am their rejected Luna. So why even bother caring now? Drake stiffened at my words, his brows drawing together as he glared at me. "What are you talking about? We never wanted you to be hurt in the first place." I burst out laughing. Truly ridiculous. Did they honestly believe I was a naive child to be manipulated the way my mother used to, with her twisted motives and cunning acts to get what she wanted? If I let them have their way, what would come next? They'd start holding my brother over my head, using him against me. I wouldn't put it past them. I'd be right back to being nothing more than a puppet. My every string pulled. I regarded him with bitter amusement. "You really don't want to hurt me. That's the best joke I've ever heard." "You're a clown. Should I remind you about how you kicked me on campus? How you tried to embarrass me in front of everyone by shouting, making all those hateful comments. And let's not forget how you always jumped to defend Samantha whenever she stirred the pot. Right. I suppose I was the bully, and she your damsel in distress. I laughed coldly, my voice brittle, my gaze icy. The silence that followed from the three of them only made my anger sharper, causing my stomach to clench and a grimace pain shoot through me. I could still feel the blood seeping from my body. I noted the helplessness in their expressions. Whatever excuses they wanted to give, the words never left their mouths. Rolling my eyes, I turned away. I had no intention of wasting any more energy on them. That was, until a surge of menace from my left side caught my attention. Asher glared furiously at the triplets, his expression murderously cold. You three alphas, did you do this to her, sister? His voice came out soft and childish, but threaded with a raw, simmering fury. I'd almost forgotten my little brother was here. Before I could speak, Lawrence addressed Asher in his gentle, calming voice, clearly attempting to soothe him. Let us explain. Okay, we never intended to hurt your sister. Besides, she is still bleeding, and there is no sign the ambulance will come anytime soon. Let us take her to our PAC's doctor. He quietly pleaded, glancing anxiously between Asher and me. I just gave them a pointed look before averting my eyes again. My body language made it plenty clear. I wanted nothing further to do with them, but Asher wasn't swayed. Unlike most children his age, he couldn't be simply pacified with soft words and kindness. Life had forced him to grow up far too quickly. He was smart and his world hardened him, leaving him mature beyond his years. Thinking of this cut deeper than any mate rejection, Asher looked at them with unconcealed scorn, as if they were hopeless fools. Do you really think you can throw some words at me and I'll just go along with whatever you want? I can feel, even if you try to hide it, that you have some strange connection to my sister. I'm warning you. Cross the line, and you'll answer to me. I won't let you harm her, he said sharply, shooting me a sideways glance. He dropped his voice, quieter only for me, but the bite remained. Sister, are they your mates? I can sense some sort of bond, even if they don't seem aware still. I feel it. We are siblings after all. His teeth clenched tightly, pain etched across his face. I managed a weak smile, my vision blurring at the edges. Despite the dizziness swirling through me, I answered softly, patting his head reassuringly. Yeah, I'm their mate, their rejected mate to be exact. Asher turned a lethal glare on the alphas, blocking them from coming anywhere near me. Protective, like a cub, refusing to let anyone near its wounded mother. You three can go now. We don't need you. Didn't you already make my sister your rejected mate? Why are you all still here? Do you really want her to suffer more? You're even crueler than the devil, he spat, voice colored with icy contempt. Ishid opened his mouth in frustration. But Asher cut him off, as Unifer Sarmiento's brother. I hereby reject whatever bond you think you have. I don't know your names, nor do you deserve for me to know them. You should leave my sister's life, find someone else to play Luna, and leave my sister alone. With that, Asher quickly dialed the ambulance again. Please, send help as soon as possible. This is a life or death situation. His panic echoed through the phone. A deep, woozy breath escaped my lips. I struggled to stay awake, but exhaustion was pressing down on my eyelids like a heavy hand. A disjointed, sleepy drone, as if someone was quietly singing a lullaby, pulled at consciousness. The dizziness got worse. My stomach twisted, my senses faded, and I couldn't feel anything anymore. My body felt heavy, on the brink of surrender. Just before my vision went black, I felt myself being lifted into someone's arms. I heard my brother's protests faintly in the background. Of course. One of the triplets had carried me. When I opened my eyes, I saw an IV drip at my left and realized I was lying in a hospital bed, nearly mummified in bandages. My attempts to move were met with resistance. I felt a small hand wrapped tightly over my right one. Turning my head, I saw Asher, fast asleep, slumped forward on the bedside chair. Relief washed over me when I saw the wound left on his face. By that thug had been properly treated. The doctor must have patched him up too. Sister. His hoarse voice and enormous yawn betrayed his worry. Fresh tears sprang to his eyes the moment he realized I was awake. He checked me up and down, making sure I was safe, finding nothing obviously wrong. Asher sighed in deep relief. Finally, you're awake. Are you hungry? You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days. Shock spiked through me. Who had taken care of my brother while I was out? Who made sure he was eating? Who sent him to school? Seeing my concern, Asher grimaced and looked away, then answered, a bit ashamed. Much as I want to deny it, it was those 3 alphas. They insisted on keeping an eye on me. My eyebrows lifted in disbelief. Those 3, they refused me as their Luna, were ready to throw me into the gutter. Now, suddenly, they're caretakers, but as long as they hadn't hurt my brother, maybe it didn't matter for now. I shot Asher a look as he pouted and muttered to himself about the alphas. And your school? I don't suppose you attended your classes? I asked, raising an eyebrow pointedly. Asher immediately looked away, lips tightening, bracing for my disappointment. Aha, so you didn't go. Clearing his throat, he started his excuse. I just couldn't concentrate, knowing you were lying up in the hospital after saving me. I couldn't relax, much less go to school. Anyway, with my brain I can always catch up. I contacted my homeroom teacher and excused myself for 3 days, he finished smoothly. The real truth? He coughed genuinely this time, and scratched his head. Yeah, made it a week. Told her I was traumatized, needed time to recover. Your condition basically knocked me senseless. It's mostly the truth. I honestly couldn't bear to go. I just exaggerated it. He gave me his best innocent stare. I only wanted to be by your side, especially with those 3 lurking around. Who knows what they'd do when I'm not here? I can't let those bastards get anywhere near you, he finished, voice fierce. They've visited here? I asked, surprised. Asher nodded, rolling his eyes, clearly exasperated. Yeah, I've tried to chase them off. They insist on sticking around, bringing food and snacks 3 times a day. Not much I could do except accept it. I might be a genius for my age, but I can't cook, shop for groceries, or figure out the taxi by myself. So, I took their food. Admiring his honesty, I reached to pat his hair. You did well. Thank you for staying by my side, and for always protecting me. I teased, pinching his nose. Asher giggled, wrapping his arms around me gently. It's nothing. I'm a wolf and your little brother. It's my job to protect you. His sincere joy made me laugh. And briefly everything felt lighter. Our laughter died abruptly when the door opened and the 3 alphas stepped in. Terribly alike in face but not in attitude. Drake wore a formal suit. Ishid appeared casual in a clean white tee and black trousers, and Lawrence sported a bright orange patterned jacket. One radiated iciness, one stony indifference, and the last a gentle, calming strength. They walked toward me as I pushed myself carefully upright, trying not to pull at my bandages. Thank you for caring for my brother while I was unconscious, I said stiffly, formal but polite, though I can be cold to those who've hurt me. I'll never forget real kindness. For now, I'd swallow my pride. Now that you're awake, "We've come for our payment for looking after your brother," Ishid declared, a hint of challenge in his eyes as he leaned against the wall and met my gaze. Unifer's point of view. My jaw dropped at their words. I stared at them as if I was looking at someone completely clueless. What on earth were they trying to pull? Payments. There was no way they meant cash. They clearly weren't short on money, so they had to be planning something else. I had a bad feeling about the kind of payment they had in mind. I thought they looked after my brother out of pity or kindness. Who would have guessed they had other motives? But what did I truly expect from the Farrer brothers? They only help people who have value to them. They don't show kindness for kindness' sake. Everything with them is transactional. I shouldn't have held out hope with these people. More like wolves in disguise. I raised my eyebrow, frowning at them. Huh? Did I ask you to do that? I shot back, feeling let down. I'd thought maybe we were starting to see eye to eye, but I was clearly kidding myself. Drake answered as if it were the most natural thing in the world. If we hadn't done it, your brother would have died of hunger by now. I would not, Asher protested, huffing angrily and shooting Drake a glare. Lawrence flashed me a smile. How about you give us a ticket each? One condition that each of us can call in when we want you to do something, or help us out in the future. Besides, we didn't just help your brother, we helped you too. We even applied for an excuse letter with the dean so you wouldn't have to worry about failing your grades. You already know. We're not the kind of wolves who do favors without getting something in return. If it weren't for us, your brother could have starved or even wound up in an accident while trying to buy food. His last words caught me off guard. What? He almost had an accident? Lawrence nodded innocently. That's right. If not for us, both of you could be recovering in a hospital right now. That is another reason I propose the one-ticket deal. I stared at him, then shifted my gaze to Asher, who had already started averting his eyes and sat quietly pretending to read. The book he held was upside down and titled The Best Way to Hide a Corpse. I didn't even want to know where he'd found it. You shouldn't do that again. You're lucky you didn't get yourself killed, I sighed, rubbing his head. Asher looked up and gave me a dazzling smile. I promise I won't. Just teach me how to cross the road next time, so nobody can take advantage and ask you for favors after helping me. I chuckled, glancing at the three brothers waiting for my answer. Fine. Each of you can ask me for a favor, as payment for helping my brother looking after him, and getting me to this hospital, I said, as evenly as I could, treating them only as benefactors. Nothing more, nothing less. Never mind that they were attractive. I could admire their looks, but their personalities were enough for me to lose interest. No way would I love any of them, even if they insisted I was their mate supposedly mated to 3 alphas. Whether it was a joke or not, I'm human. How could I so easily have mates? 3 alpha mates. No less. I looked away, but not because I was afraid of falling for them. I was honest enough to admit their good looks were blinding, but staring too long might actually leave me blind. When they heard my answer, all 3 looked satisfied. All except Drake, who tried to act indifferent but had a smug look on his face. Apparently, having that ticket mattered to them. Just know, I won't accept anything illegal, I told them sternly. They just nodded, or rather hummed in response. That's all we wanted. See you around, Drake said coolly, then turned on his heel and left, his brothers following. I rolled my eyes at their dramatic exit, then let out a deep breath as the room seemed to reset to regular temperature. Turning to Asher again, I noticed his brow furrowed as he read that weird book with determined focus. Not going to school today. I heard you're sort of a loner there. Not much for socializing. Why is that? Setting aside the book, Asher sighed and answered flatly. I'm not a loner. It's just that my level's too high for them to keep up. If they can't reach me, it is their problem. I'm not going to pretend to be someone else just so they'll like me. Faking and pretending don't come naturally to me. Acting's not my thing. His expression changed so quickly. I couldn't help laughing. I sighed, nodding. All right. Just remember, even a quick greeting is good. Try to interact a little, I said, ruffling his hair again. It wasn't my place to control him or force him to make friends. He had his own path to walk. All I wanted was for him to be happy. A normal life. Nothing like the miserable days at Mother Kilda's house. At my approval, he brightened, hugging me close. Sister, you are the best. 6 days after my hospital stay, I was finally ready to go back to school. All my wounds had healed so thoroughly that the hospital doctor was stunned. There weren't even any scars. I'd been sent to a regular hospital, not the Farrer's Pack hospital. All thanks to Asher insisting on treating me as a human. It didn't really matter anyway. I knew my self-healing was much higher than that of an average person, leaving those thoughts behind. I entered the classroom, hoping no one would look for trouble. I needed my body intact, not just for school, but because I had to return to Dark Alley and compete again, now that I was well. The second I pushed open the door, every eye turned my way. It was almost the way a class might look at a celebrity, but their gazes killed that comparison instantly. Their eyes were full of both disgust and malicious excitement, as if my presence was a game for them, and I was their next unwitting toy. That was just how it was. But I knew the real reason they were just jealous. Despite their money, which, yes, is important, and I love a lot too, they were still shallow fools without knowledge or skill to back it up. So this wretch is still alive. Wouldn't she do better buried 10 feet under? Samantha's lackey called out, glaring at me. I glanced at the girl just long enough to feel my soul shrink from how ugly her heart was. Then I flashed her a bright smile. It's actually quite cozy underground. How about you try it? Experience is the best teacher, they say. Her face went stiff, cheeks coloring with rage. She raised her hand, wavering, lips moving on the edge of a wordless snarl. I laughed gently to myself and walked to my seat. But before I could sit, someone slapped my desk and kicked my chair aside. I looked. Samantha herself stood there, wearing clothes so tight and small. She was basically in a tube top. Not my concern, calmly. I looked up and arched an eyebrow. You want another punch? I'll gladly throw in a bonus one, only for you. Just say the word. You sure got arrogant. Just because you happen to ride the Farrer's coattails, you think you can be shameless. Samantha spat. She half raised her hand to slap me, but I caught her wrist. I smirked, lowering my voice. If you want to see how shameless I can really be, we can start right now. Want to see? Letting her go, I glanced around the room for another chair. My eyes landed on one next to a student with his face hidden by his bangs, head lowered. What was up with him? Was he bullied too? I was about to greet my new seatmate when the entire classroom suddenly fell silent, only to burst into harsh laughter moments later. None of the laughter was friendly, it was full of mockery. Ha! The two nerds are sitting together. Birds of a feather flock together. How about making them a couple, a poor scholar and a slave scholar? Perfect fit. I'll second that. Look at this Omega, not man enough. He matches that stray mutt uniform perfectly. How did riffraff like them even end up as our classmates? So embarrassing, disgusting, human trash and an Omega. What filthy, miserable creatures, sitting together. They didn't bother with lowering their voices. They wanted us to hear every word, as if reveling in cruelty was a game. My brow ticked as I gritted my teeth. But I kept my smile. It just didn't reach my eyes. How I'd have loved to crack a few skulls open, see if anything. Anything at all rattled around inside their heads besides their nasty attitudes. I sighed. Idiots, I muttered, letting them keep buzzing away. Maybe, just maybe, they'd move along soon. PFFE. A soft, held-back giggle drew my attention to my seatmate. What? He shook his head quickly and tucked himself farther behind his curtain of hair. Nothing. I think you were right. Unifer's point of view. I looked at the poor slave Omega they were talking about. Even though half his face was hidden by his bangs, they couldn't conceal his gentle jawline or his pale skin. If I had to guess, he stood about 1975 centimeters tall. I'm Unifer. By the way, I'll be sitting here next to you, I said calmly, offering him a warm smile. The Omega timidly raised his head at my introduction. I'm Kale. Are you okay sitting next to me? We might get in trouble with them, he whispered, pursing his lips and nervously fiddling with his hands. Hearing him, I met his eyes and couldn't help being drawn in by their striking golden color. Like a cat's. It's fine. You should worry more about yourself. Because of me, you'll probably end up bullied by them again, I said with a weary sigh. Kale shook his head gently. It doesn't matter. I've been bullied by them for a long time now. My brows furrowed at his words. I already suspected he was a target especially of Samantha and her group, the ones who always picked on anyone weaker or less wealthy. Samantha in particular despised scholars like us, but it didn't matter. Their actions only proved her jealousy. She could never gain the knowledge we'd earned, not with a heart rotten enough to stand on others just to feel tall. I sighed again, reaching out to gently pat his shoulder. You have it rough, I said, looking at him with sympathy. I knew how it felt. I'd also been bullied by Samantha, not just bullied, but slapped by her and kicked by Alpha Drake, all while his twin brothers watched and mocked me from the sidelines. It was a humiliation I'd never forget. Kale shook his head at my concern. It wasn't that bad since they mostly use words. They said a lot of cruel things and spread lies about me. Sometimes they push or kick me, but it doesn't really matter. I just don't want you to go through what I have. It's awful just because I'm an Omega. They treat you like a servant just because you're an Omega. I asked, my voice heavy as I searched his face for answers. Kale sighed and nodded. Yeah, that's basically it. Omegas are seen as the lowest, and since we're weaker, people treat us like we're nothing like slaves. That's terrible. Kale gave a bitter laugh and nodded again. Well, what can I do? I was born an Omega. The only thing I can do is accept it, but that doesn't give them the right to mistreat you, I retorted, frowning as I looked at him, resigned and defeated. Kale just shrugged softly. It's out of my control. I fell quiet, frustration mixing with helplessness. If Kale wouldn't stand up for himself, how could I help him? He just let them say and do whatever they wanted, never fighting back. Just as I was about to keep talking, something thick and sticky dripped down my head, and from the look on Kale's shocked face onto him too, red paint, reeking and cold, smeared across both of us. Kale looked down at his white shirt, now stained, and at the mess dripping from his hair. I saw the same on myself. Thankfully it missed my face. My hair, though, was soaked and sticky with the stuff. I didn't need to look up to know who'd done this. Only Samantha and her lackeys would stoop so low. They were standing up there, laughing at the misery they'd created. Their mood was euphoric, relishing our humiliation. Veins throbbed in my forehead as I glared at Samantha, ignoring the wet paint matting my hair. This is what you get for challenging us. Who do you think you are? You're nothing but a poor scholar. How dare you try to catch the Pharaoh's attention? Just so you know, They're mine, Samantha shrieked, eyes wild, like a wolf threatening its latest prey. Her words made me laugh. Did she really believe I wanted their attention? Those three idiots clearly enthralled by this spiteful woman. Samantha's possessiveness explained the twins' eagerness to defend her. No matter how cruel she got, she was their prize. Did they really have the nerve to claim we were fated mates? Then reject me. For her, a sigh escaped my chest. Pushing back my red-stained hair, I faced Samantha's taunting smile head-on. Are you in love with me? Is that why you're so desperate for my attention? Sorry, but I can't accept your feelings, I said coolly, meeting her eyes without a trace of fear. The room fell silent. Samantha stood glaring, her face flushing red with rage. How dare you? She screeched, shaking as she advanced towards me, hand raised. But I caught her wrist. Before she could land a hit, she cried out, twisting and struggling helplessly. So weak. I hadn't even squeezed tightly yet. She shrieked as though tortured. Let go. Ow, let go. It hurts. Samantha howled, cursing and thrashing, but I ignored her, holding firm as I stood up. The others, her lackeys, hovered in the background, uncertain as they watched me force Samantha a step backward. So, you do know what pain feels like, I said evenly, staring her down. Of course. Do you think I'm a robot? She spat, making me chuckle dryly. What about me then? Do you think I'm a machine, incapable of anger, incapable of pain? Or maybe I'm supposed to play saint and forgive everyone, no matter what they've done? I whispered, brushing a trail of the reeking red paint over her face. Her pale cheeks, usually flawless, were marred now by the stain she meant for me and Kale. Sack's panic flickered across her features as she shrieked, trying to break away. Her followers intervened, some daring to brandish anything they could, tumblers, pens, anything that could be wielded as a weapon. I glared at them. Make one move, and I'll make you regret it. My voice was low, cold, dangerous. One look, and they retracted immediately, hesitate, lowering what they'd grabbed. Samantha screamed in frustration. Cowards, she's weak. You can take her down if you try, she shouted, but her supporters only shrank back farther. I pressed further, smearing paint down her shoulder, over her face, across her stomach. Samantha's body shuddered and she shrieked at every touch. Just as I went to continue, a chilling voice sounded behind me. Before turning, I slapped a palmful of paint right on Samantha's chest, then faced the newcomer, the one wolf I'd recognize anywhere, here to kick me again. Just like on my first day. I asked coldly, narrowing my eyes at Drake, who glowered at me from across the room. He barely glanced at Samantha. What do you think you're doing? He demanded, expectant and cold. I let out a mocking laugh and pulled my hand from Samantha's wrist, letting her drop onto a desk, trembling and fighting tears. The moment she saw Drake, hope filled her eyes as if she'd found her rescuer. Alpha Drake, help me, please, I've done nothing, Samantha wailed, reaching for him. I rolled my eyes. She was pathetic, playing damsel even as she trembled with rage. Go on, play the hero. She's desperate for your help, I sneered. Then I turned to Kale, still shaking, and gently took his wrist, steering him out of the classroom after me. In the hallway, I led him straight to the bathroom. There was no way I'd leave him alone for the others to torment. Why did you drag me here? Kale asked quietly, a hint of nervous confusion in his eyes. I shot him a look. What else? We reek and we're sticky all over with this paint. It's called a bathroom. We're here to clean up. He looked away self-consciously. Do you have any spare clothes then? I have an extra white shirt, Good. Where is it? I asked without hesitation. It's in my locker. I can go get it for you, Kale said, and started toward the door, but I stopped him. No need. I'll grab it. You hop in the shower first. I made my way down the hall to the locker room. As I entered, I noticed Lawrence and Ishid lounging against the lockers, waiting for someone. I raised an eyebrow at them, but pretended not to care. Heading straight for Kale's locker, just as I opened it, a shadow appeared beside me. I sighed. What do you want? I murmured, wiping my hands on my t-shirt before reaching for the extra clothes. What happened? They asked in perfect unison, voices flat and cold. I shut the locker without answering and made to leave, only to find myself abruptly cornered, caught in the classic bold gesture of Cabedon. Trapped by both of them inside the locker room, the full moon cast silver streaks across my bedroom floor, corrupting every shadow as if even the dark couldn't hide from tonight's light. Wind rattled the loose pane beside my bed, but I lay awake, every muscle tensed, each creak of the old house pressed at my ears, breathing the stories I hadn't dared confess to anyone, not even myself. Down the hallway, floorboards groaned under someone's weight. I stiffened, heart pounding. It was always worse on nights like these, when the world turned unnaturally bright and the woods outside whispered secrets. I closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. The bedroom door creaked open, and warm breath ghosted against my skin. You thought you could lock me out? His voice slipped in, cold and biting, every syllable dripped with menace. My body curled tighter beneath the covers, hands gripping the blanket so hard my knuckles ached. I wanted to be invisible, to vanish into thin air. Heavy footsteps closed in. He snatched the blanket away and yanked me upright by the arm. You're not deaf, answer me. His grip left bruises, but I kept my face impassive. Number, sir? A growl rumbled from his chest. You think you're clever now. I can smell fear. Don't you ever forget that. He leaned in. Old wolves tear the young apart. Bad wolves eat anyone they choose. His gaze swept over me. Judging. Grandmother's stories flickered through my head about real wolves. The kind with fur and teeth. I almost preferred them. With a final, contemptuous shove, he released me. My legs barely caught me as I stumbled backward. Start acting like you belong here, he spat. Before you start wishing the wolf in those stories ate you. As quickly as he'd come, he turned and left, slamming the door hard enough that the glass rattled again. I slumped on the bed and pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. Tears burned, but I would not cry. Not tonight. The moonlit shadows outlined a predator on the wall, ears sharp, teeth bared. Maybe that's what I had to be, not a frightened girl clutching at hope, but a wolf of my own cunning enough to survive until dawn. Beside me, the wind howled through the cracks. The night had only just begun. I let out a heavy sigh, raising my head to glare at the idiot who blocked my way in the locker room, trapping me with his arms so I couldn't escape. Lawrence stood right next to him, grinning like a fool and leaning casually against the lockers, as if he fully supported whatever stunt his twin brother Ishid was pulling on me. These Farrer brothers just never want to give me a break. What do you want now? Can't you see I am already covered in stinking red paint? I snapped at Ishid, frowning. Who did this to you? He asked coldly. I rolled my eyes and slapped his hands away. Go ask your dear Luna. I am going to take a shower. Without waiting for a response, I hurried into the women's bathroom. Naturally, before going in, I left Kale's clean clothes. He'd had 2 shirts and I'd grabbed one folded neatly in front of the guys' showers. Next time, I'll bring spare clothes so I won't have to borrow from anyone. With the hot water washing away the stench and the paint, I breathed a sigh of relief and pulled on the fresh black shirt Kale had lent me. Even if I am not as thin as the other girls, Kale's clothes fit me better than I expected. My black pants, thankfully, hadn't gotten hit with the paint, so I wore them again. When I stepped out of the bathroom, I nearly tripped over Drake. He stood right outside, blocking my path. The surprise made me jump. Why are you standing there? I exclaimed, startled. Drake said nothing. Instead, he grabbed my wrist and dragged me along, forcing me to hurry after him. His grip was annoyingly tight. I yanked my arm free and fixed him with a glare. What is wrong with all of you? Can't you just leave me alone? If this is about that Luna nonsense, I'll pretend it never happened. All right, if you are worried, I'll tell everyone about being mated with the fairer triplets and ruin your reputations. Don't bother. I won't say a word about it. Drake silenced me abruptly with his mouth. My eyes widened in disbelief as he caught me by the waist, pulled me close, and pressed his lips to mine. He pried my mouth open with his tongue, nibbling at my lips until I shoved at his chest to breathe. Right as I lifted my hand to slap him for being so brazen, another hand caught mine. Lawrence, eyes bright, was gripping my wrist as if he never intended to let go. What are you, crazy? I managed, struggling. Without warning, Lawrence pressed his lips to mine, kissing me just as Drake had. Furious, I couldn't believe the nerve of these arrogant jerks. Just because I went easy on them for what happened in the past didn't mean they could keep crossing the line. When Lawrence finally released me, I barely had time to recover before Ishid stepped in, grabbed my chin, tipped my face up, and brushed a kiss across my lips. By now, I was practically gasping for air. They must be actual dogs in their past lives. Were they trying to suffocate me? I shoved all three away, catching my breath and shooting daggers at each one. You, and you. I jabbed a finger at each of them. Isn't being kicked, trampled, bullied, mocked, and looked down on enough for you three? You think I'm just a toy for you to play with? Is it because I'm the so-called poor scholar? Is that what you see when you look at me? No, it's not, Drake answered calmly, licking his lower lip as if he were savoring the kiss. I raised my brows and folded my arms. Isn't it? You want to string me along and use me whenever you like? Stunt like this. What you're trying to spread around that I'm seducing the fairer alphas, that I'm some easy girl. Is that the sort of reputation you want for me? You already rejected me as your Luna. Why bother now? I didn't wait for a response before turning and walking away. It doesn't matter. I already got rejected as your Luna, and that's not something I need to mourn, I told them over my shoulder. If you want someone as your Luna, Samantha practically throws herself at you and fits your taste. She's more suitable than I'll ever be. I kept my back straight and walked away without looking back. It should be Samantha they want, not someone like me. A so-called scholar struggling just to stay in school, not some sultry alpha's dream. And really, there's no need for me to compete with Samantha. I may not be as sexy, but my intelligence is second to none, and my looks are decent. Besides, I'm strong. I can fight. I can box. Being rejected hurt. But it's not like I'll let it shake me. It's not like I care about them, right? But, if I'm honest, the memory of their kisses lingered, a spark that sent my heart pounding even when I tried to suppress it. There was a heated flutter beneath my skin, something that made me hungry for more even as I cursed myself for it. Ridiculous. I must be losing my mind. Maybe they put some weird spell on me. Made me react like an animal in heat. Good thing I resisted. If I hadn't, things might have gotten out of control. Enough. Thinking about it, back in the hallway, I spotted Kale again. The Omega always looking at the floor like he was born to bow for others, hugging himself against the cold while a bunch of cruel jerks kicked him for fun. Watching them beat down my friend made my blood boil. I flexed my hands in anticipation. With the corridor empty, this was the perfect place to teach them a lesson. "What do you think you are doing to my friend, huh?" I said in a chilling voice, tilting my head and giving them my sweetest smile. Before they could react, I charged at them, fist flying, and landed a punch right to someone's nose, hard enough to make him crumple to the floor. Not out to kill them, but they dropped, unconscious, pathetic. These so-called beta bullies are nothing. This academy only allows one human in its wolf pack. That's me. Not only am I bullied for being poor and a scholar, I get looked down on as a human with no family backing. Turns out, surviving is a full-time job. Kale was crouched with his hands on his head. Shivering. They're gone. Stand tall and lift your chin, Kale. Don't let them trample all over you. You're not their carpet. You're a person. Act like one, I said, helping him steady himself. Thursday to Thursday, ain't you? He murmured softly, but I heard it. I shook my head and waved it off. No big deal. You lent me those clothes and I decided you're not so bad, just wanted to help. He brushed off the dirt, managing a shaky smile. Thank you, he said again, making me roll my eyes. Seriously, you're not weak. Why do you let them do this to you? I asked. Kale tensed, then forced a small chuckle. It's not worth the trouble. I'd rather avoid making things worse. I shrugged. If he didn't want to talk, that was his business. I hope one day you remember you are more than just an omega. You're Kale. You should be proud of how far you've come despite everything. Surviving here isn't easy, but you're still here, I told him. I caught the redness in his eyes. He quickly wiped his tears before turning away. I smiled and headed off, listening to the faint sound of sniffles behind me. At least, by some miracle, I made it out of campus without the Ferrer brothers stopping me. Time to let off steam, time for some boxing. Lawrence's point of view. We stood, speechless, in the wake of Luna's words. It wasn't that we didn't want to explain. She just never gave us a chance. Of course, I wanted to clear things up, but knowing Drake and Ishid each with more pride than sense, I didn't expect them to even try. When things are this complicated, accepting Unifer as our mate isn't so simple. Our father calls all the shots, and he set his sights on Samantha being our Luna. That's not what I want. I can barely tolerate Samantha. I'm good at faking a smile and putting on a mask, but when she pours on her charms, I just want to get away. If Unifer tried to seduce me, I know I'd give her whatever she wanted, whether or not I was just a tool for her game. She's my mate. After all, looking at my brothers as they brooded over Unifer's brutal anger, I sighed. What do we do now? She clearly wants nothing to do with us, I said. Ishid clicked his tongue, shaking his head. It doesn't matter, let's follow her. Drake stood up too, agreeing. Yeah. I'm more worried she'll run into a dangerous wolf while we're not there. Amused, I thought. We're the dangerous wolves, but I kept that to myself. I'd rather be the bad wolf by her side than let her be alone. Unifer's point of view. I dodged Razor's punch, swiftly shifting to my left. Blocking his leg, I grabbed his arms and used all my strength to slam him down onto the floor. I didn't give him a chance to get up. Planting my foot firmly, I kicked him hard in the back. He let out a furious, pained growl and struggled to rise, but just as he tried, I punched the back of his head and chopped at his nape. He collapsed unconscious. And the winner is Moriarty, the announcer exclaimed with gusto, the crowd erupting in cheers. Relief washed over me as I climbed down from the ring, the audience's chants of Moriarty echoing. bringing a satisfied smile to my face. As usual, I headed to the counter to claim my prize. The cash burned reassuringly in my hand as I deposited it at the nearest bank. Pulling out my phone to check my balance. The 4 trailing zeros made me grin. Money genuinely cheered me. A simple reassurance spelled out in digits. With the prize money secure, I set out to the supermarket for groceries. But as I walked the streets, an uneasy feeling crept over me. Someone was following, their presence thick with malice, biding their time for me to let my guard down. I decided to lure them out. Feigning distraction, I waited. Just as I sensed a hand coming down towards my neck, a sudden movement caught my eye. A broad hand someone else's twisted the attacker's arm mid-strike, wrenching a cry of pain from them. Whipping around, I was startled to find Drake, Ishid, and Lawrence standing there. "What are you doing here? Are you following me?" I demanded icily, eyes fixed on Drake while he tightened his grip on the would-be assailant's arm. Drake locked eyes with me, then glanced back at the groaning attacker, saying nothing. "What do you think you're doing?" Drake asked coldly, his authoritative tone making the man shriek as he twisted his arm harder. The man trembled, face reddening with fear beneath Drake's overwhelming alpha presence. With 3 alphas surrounding me, it was no wonder a lesser wolf dared not even look our way. "N number. P please let me go. I won't do it again." The pathetic man shuddered, staring up at the alphas as if they were unmovable mountains, begging for their mercy. Drake gave him a hard, cold glare. "Let you go? After what you just tried to pull? What exactly did you think you were doing?" The man wrung his hands, mute with fear, hesitant to speak. But from the furious aura Drake emanated, there was no resisting him. Finally shivering, he stammered, "I was blinded by money." His voice cracked as he looked away. Hearing this, my breath hitched. Of course, he'd been in the crowd, seen my prize. Tempted by the haul, he'd seen me as an easy target. I could see Drake and the twins were waiting for more, which made my nerves tingle. Damn, they didn't know the truth. I was hiding Moriarty's identity from them. It was a secret, the famed unbeaten fighter in every underground match, a name whispered across many packs. Some endlessly tried investigating me. Others begged me to join them, but I always refused, fueling the mystique. Moriarty was always alone, always unpredictable. No one saw beyond the persona. Wolves had tried stalking me before, searching for any shred of evidence, but none ever succeeded. That's why shock hurled in my gut. I hadn't even sensed these 3 alphas tracking me before they stepped out to help. Not wanting the truth out, I quickly cut off the explanation. Just let him go. I knew what he wanted. I played along to catch him. Didn't expect you 3 to show up and beat me to it, I said, directing the words pointedly to Drake and gesturing for him to release the shaking man. Drake hesitated barely a moment, but finally took the hint and loosened his grip. The attacker scuttled away like a terrified animal, all but tripping over himself in his haste. Drake eyed me, brow raised. "Why'd you let him go? He nearly attacked you. If I hadn't stepped in, what then? You would have been taken and robbed." I shook my head. "No way. Even without your help, I could have handled him myself. You might be strong for a human, but you're still human." "Wolves outclass people," he retorted, matter of fact. The heat of anger bubbled inside me. Weak. Really? They had no clue how many wolves I'd put down in the ring. Me, weak. I didn't need to be rescued, especially not by the very alphas who'd rejected me. Still, I forced a smile, though it never reached my eyes. "Is that so? Maybe you should keep your distance if you think I'm so fragile. You won't have to bother rescuing me then. Didn't we agree not to concern ourselves with each other after you turned me down as Luna? I shouldn't have to keep reminding you." Drake looked like he wanted to protest, but stayed silent, swallowing his reply. Another tired sigh escaped me. I was beginning to sound like a deflating balloon with how often I was sighing today. Anyway, I am heading out, I said calmly, spinning to leave when someone caught my wrist. Let go, I snapped. What's with your clothes today? If we hadn't been following you, we'd have never realized it was you, Lawrence said softly. I stiffened, skin crackling like I'd been hit by a bolt. Hell, I still had my wig, my costume, the nearly smeared makeup meant to obscure my features. The itchiness reminded me just how hastily I'd painted on this new persona. My business, not yours, I retorted coldly, wriggling my hand from his grip, but he held firm. Why the disguise? And we saw you coming back from Dark Alley, where the underground fights are. Something you want to tell us? Lawrence pressed gently, not letting me go. Watching him, I ripped the wig off, letting my real hair stream down before stashing the fake in my backpack. Next, I scrubbed my makeup off with wipes, the cheap stuff stinging my skin. What were they? My mother's. Did I need to check in with them at every step? Not that I expected them to take the hint. It was more like shouting into the void. There's nothing. I don't have anything to. Before I could finish, Lawrence suddenly pulled me tightly to his chest. My world whirled as his arms circled my waist in protective reflex. Off to the side, Ishid crouched defensively, eyes burning towards the west. Behind them, Drake stood transformed already in his beast form. Whoever was approaching, this wasn't one of the usual low-ranking wolves. A quick glance revealed oversized wolves with blue fur and massive claws, poised for attack. But even as Drake and Ishid fought them off with lethal precision, the wolves didn't aim at the alphas. They were coming straight for me. Why? I had no ties to the crowd's wolf packs or bounty hunters greedy for my prize money. Who the hell are they? I demanded quietly, looking at Lawrence, suspicion prickling at my mind. Trying to recall anyone I may have wronged, the list remained too narrow. Samantha, the 3 alphas. Definitely not them. If they wanted me, they didn't need proxies. These wolves weren't acting on typical bloodlust. They were methodical. It almost seemed as if Lawrence recognized their employer. But he stayed silent, fury flickering in his glance. Drake's bark split the chaos. Rents, get her out of here. Lawrence didn't think twice. He scooped me up and sprinted as fast as he could, air whipping past us as we fled. Go to my house, I murmured evenly, even though danger pressed in on every side. If not for their intervention, those wolves would have snatched me. For a heartbeat, Lawrence wavered before changing direction. As we tore away from the madness, I caught his muttered words. They won't catch us. Ishid and Drake will keep them at bay.